All over the world, airports are safe harbors for airplanes, pilots, passengers, and everyone in the aviation business. But you'd never guess that these magnificent structures can also be safe harbors for homeless folks. In fact, in the past, several people have broken world records in successfully transforming a bustling airport into a typical home sweet home. Want to find out who these people are? Stay tuned as we dive into 7 individuals who ended up living in airports. Number 7. Karimi Neri. There's a long line of folks who have dared to live in airports, but one of the individuals with a very extensive stay was this man, Karimi Neri. His story was so mind-blowing that it inspired the creation of a movie titled The Terminal. Neri had been traveling from Iran to England in 1988 when he got into a bit of a hot mess. The voyage was supposed to be through France, but after he landed at the Paris airport, he was found wanting. As an Iranian refugee, he needed the documents to prove his identity, but they were nowhere to be found. Without this document, Neri was declined from boarding the plane, and he was also forbidden from leaving the Paris airport too. It was a nasty situation that left this man stranded and hopeless in a foreign country. And this was how he began to take refuge in the Paris airport. Initially, this man wasn't forgotten entirely, as the airport authorities forwarded his case to the relevant officials in France, who in turn sent his info to others in England. And that was how his case began to bounce back and forth until the French authorities, out of pity, decided to offer him permanent residence in France. But this stubborn refugee would have none of it. He was determined to get to his dreamland, England, by any means necessary. And so, in a twisted plethora of rage, stubbornness, and hope for a free world, Neri stayed at Charles de Gaulle Airport, making his home in between planes and hangars, eating whatever he could glean off of passengers and compassionate staff. Days turned into months and months to years, until 18 whole years had passed. And this was how Neri ended up becoming a tenant in an airport from 1988 to 2006. The funny thing is that this man may have probably raised a family here if he hadn't fallen ill and been rushed to the hospital. Talk about living rent-free. Who knew airport authorities could be so generous? Number 6. Edward Snowden. They say never to bite the hand that feeds you. Well, this man, Edward Snowden, may have done just that when he leaked a bunch of classified government information to the public sometime in 2013. The information was so shocking that it sparked public outrage and gross criticism of the U.S. government. And just in case you're wondering how bad it was something along the lines of monitoring citizens via their phones, millions of dollars spent on shady tech projects, and numerous other dirty government secrets. It was so bad that the government put out a manhunt for Snowden. Now, Snowden was no hitman or daredevil. In fact, he was pretty much just a nerd. Terrified for his life, Edward Snowden flew from Hong Kong, where he had previously taken refuge, to Moscow, hoping for Russian protection. However, he got to learn that the Russians weren't so keen on giving free handouts to strangers. Snowden was forced to stay in the airport's transit zone for about 40 days before he was finally granted asylum. By this time, the nerd had spent his days learning the Russian language and understanding their ways. As luck would have it, Snowden was later granted permanent residence, thanks to a few more dirty leaks. Number 5. Adicha Sing. A 36-year-old man from California was arrested at the Chicago O'Hare Airport after the airport authorities found out he had been living there for about 3 months. The man was found to be living in a restricted part of the airport, and for no good reason. In fact, he was faking his identification by using a misplaced badge of an airport official. This incident took place in January 2021. Apparently, this man had been squatting in the airport for fear of COVID-19. Too scared to fly back home, he decided to be a refugee in the airport, preying on innocent passengers for food. After the authorities found out about his naughty habits, he was quickly charged with criminal trespass, misdemeanor, and theft. Also, he was fined a $1,000 bail and banned from the airport. Number 4. Hiroshi Noara. Over in Mexico, another man took to the airplane hangars to build an empire for himself. This man, Hiroshi Noara, had arrived in Mexico's Benito Juarez International Airport in September 2008, all the way from Tokyo. However, rather than check in at the hotel, he chose to lodge at the airport. Now, there's no clear answer as to where he slept or where he set up his kitchen and wardrobe, but we're pretty sure this man must have had a nice, comfy life because he spent a whopping 4 months in the hotel. According to reports, he survived thanks to the help of passengers and airport staff. This man's begging skills were so impeccable that he soon became a local celebrity. Everyone in the airport literally knew him. Later investigations showed that he had actually traveled down to Mexico to meet his lover, who had invited him over, only for him to later abandon the woman and become an airport refugee. One good thing about Noara's story, however, is that he wasn't dragged out of the airport. He left of his own volition after his 6-month tourist visa had expired. Number 3. Zara Kamfar. If you thought that only men were capable of playing hide-and-seek in airports, think again. This woman from Iran found herself in between airplane hangars after an unfortunate event made her flee her hometown. Kamfar was a human rights activist who had been detained for attending a protest against the Iranian regime alongside her husband. At first, she was given a 2-day pass from jail. However, things got out of hand after she learned that her husband was killed in prison. Scared for her life, she left on the next available flight, heading to Moscow, Russia. Alongside her were her 2 kids, Anna and Davud. But on getting to Russia, she was refused entry. Frustrated, penniless, and with nowhere else to go, she carved out a place to stay in the airport and lived there from April 2005 until early 2006. Somehow a Good Samaritan did the necessary paperwork and she was given access to Canada to live with her brother. Talk about a happy ending. Number 2. Feng Zhenghu. Feng Zhenghu is one individual who learned the hard way that the government never forgets. In 2009, the human rights activist left China for Japan for some medical treatment, only for him to get bounced by the Chinese airport authorities upon his return. And here's the shocking thing. He was bounced 4 good times, and on 4 other occasions, he wasn't even allowed to board a plane to China. And just in case you're wondering why this man's own government hated him so much, it's all due to his several articles he had written criticizing the Chinese government. The enthusiastic activist learned the hard way when he couldn't pay a flight ticket back to Japan, and so had to make do with the airport. He begged for food from strangers and had nothing else to sleep on other than a hard steel bench. Even worse, the airport was always busy, so he could only sleep from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. It wasn't until after a whole 92 days that this sad activist got to return home. And even then, the government put him under house arrest as a welcome-back gift. What can we say? Never underestimate the government. Number 1. Mohammed al-Bahish. Mohammed's story is that of a love story gone sour. The Palestinian had gone on a love trip to see his fiancée in Kazakhstan. However, upon arrival, he realized his refugee travel documents were missing, and his visa had also expired. He decided to fly over to Turkey to renew the visa, only to get turned back at the border. But then again, to compound the whole situation, Israel refused to let him travel back to Palestine, his home. And so, Mohammed found himself trapped in the airport, unable to go anywhere. The airport security was on his tail all day long, monitoring his every move. He slept in a small, windowless room with just 1 bunk bed and sofa. His bath and poop time was regulated, as guards followed him like a prisoner. This was how this man lived for 5 months until he was finally given asylum in Finland. Damn, the things we do for love. That's all for this video. Let us know which of these stories you find most interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you next time. Bye for now.